This is a story from the Fortune Ledger HQ. Every empire believes it will last forever. China once did. For thousands of years, it saw itself not just as a nation, but as civilization itself. While Europe was fractured into warring kingdoms, China was unified, bureaucratic, confident, and wealthy. Its emperors ruled with the mandate of heaven. Its inventions changed the world. Its people believed history revolved around them. And then, in the 19th century, everything collapsed. Foreign ships appeared on China's shores, not carrying tribute, but demands. Cannons spoke louder than tradition. Treaties were signed at gunpoint. Cities burned. Millions died. What followed was not just defeat, but humiliation so deep that it would shape Chinese thinking for generations. This is the story of how China fell, how it was broken, and how, against history, against expectations, and against enormous odds, it rebuilt itself into one of the most powerful forces the world has ever seen. In the early 1800s, China did not see itself as weak. The Qing dynasty ruled over a vast population and a massive economy. European traders wanted Chinese goods, tea, silk, porcelain, but China wanted almost nothing in return. Silver flowed into China, draining European treasuries. Britain, the world's rising industrial power, faced a problem: a massive trade deficit. The solution Britain chose would change history. Opium. Grown in British-controlled India, opium was smuggled into China on an enormous scale. Millions became addicted. Families collapsed. Productivity fell. Silver began flowing out of China instead of in. When the Qing government finally tried to stop the trade, Britain responded not with negotiation, but with war. The First Opium War was not a fair fight. British steam-powered ships, modern artillery, and disciplined armies overwhelmed China's outdated military. The result was devastating. China was forced to sign the Treaty of Nanjing, giving up Hong Kong, opening ports to foreign control, and granting extraterritorial rights to foreigners, meaning they were above Chinese law. It was the beginning of what China would later call the century of humiliation. And it only got worse. More wars followed. More unequal treaties. France, Russia, Germany, Japan, and the United States all carved out spheres of influence. Missionaries spread foreign religion. Foreign soldiers marched through Chinese cities. The imperial system that had governed China for centuries was exposed as weak, corrupt, and incapable of defending its people. Internally, China was tearing itself apart. The Taiping Rebellion, one of the deadliest civil wars in human history, killed tens of millions. Famine spread. Banditry became common. Trust in the Qing dynasty evaporated. This was not just military defeat. It was a psychological collapse. For the first time, China was forced to confront a painful truth. The world had moved on without it. By the early 20th century, the Qing dynasty was finished. The last emperor abdicated in 1912. But what replaced it was not stability. It was chaos. Warlords divided the country. Japan invaded, occupying vast territories and committing atrocities that remain deeply etched into Chinese memory. Cities were bombed. Civilians massacred. The state barely functioned. China was poor, fractured, and traumatized. Yet inside this collapse, something important was happening. Chinese intellectuals, reformers, and revolutionaries began asking dangerous questions. Why has China fallen so far behind? Why were foreign powers so strong? And how could China ever regain control of its destiny? Some looked to Western science and industry. Others turned to Marxism, believing capitalism and imperialism were the root of China's suffering. From this turmoil emerged two competing visions for China's future: the nationalists and the communists. After decades of struggle, civil war, and Japanese invasion, the Chinese Communist Party emerged victorious in 1949. Mao Zedong stood atop Tiananmen Gate and declared the founding of the People's Republic of China. To many Chinese, this moment was not about ideology. It was about dignity. For the first time in over a century, China was unified again under a single authority. Foreign concessions were dismantled. The old order was swept away. The message was clear: China would never again be bullied by outsiders. But rebuilding a broken civilization is harder than winning a war. Mao's early years were driven by urgency and fear. China was poor, technologically backward, and surrounded by hostile powers. The solution, Mao believed, was radical transformation, fast. Land was redistributed. Industry was nationalized. The state took control of nearly every aspect of economic life. Some reforms brought order. Others brought catastrophe. The Great Leap Forward was meant to propel China into industrial modernity. Instead, it triggered one of the worst famines in human history. Tens of millions died. The economy collapsed. Trust was shattered. Then came the Cultural Revolution. In the name of ideological purity, schools closed, professionals were persecuted, history was attacked, and social order disintegrated. China survived, but it did not prosper. By the time Mao died in 1976, China was unified and sovereign, but still poor. This is where the story changes. Deng Xiaoping did not reject the Communist Party, but he rejected the idea that ideology mattered more than results. His philosophy was simple. It did not matter whether a cat was black or white, as long as it caught mice. China opened its doors, not politically, but economically. Special economic zones were created. Foreign investment was invited. Farmers were allowed to profit from their labor. Private enterprise slowly returned. Markets were cautiously embraced. And the results were explosive. Factories rose where rice fields once stood. Millions moved from villages to cities. Exports flooded global markets. Infrastructure spread at a scale the world had never seen. China became the workshop of the world. But this was not blind imitation of the West. China learned selectively. It used state power to guide markets. It protected key industries. It demanded technology transfer. It thought ahead in decades, not election cycles. Economic growth was not just about wealth. It was about security. Every skyscraper, every highway, every port was proof to its own people and to the world that China was back. By the early 21st century, the transformation was undeniable. Hundreds of millions were lifted out of poverty. China joined the World Trade Organization. Its companies became global players. Its currency, its banks, its supply chains embedded themselves into the global system. And beneath it all was memory. The memory of humiliation. China's leadership did not forget the Opium Wars. It did not forget foreign gunboats. It did not forget occupation, famine, or weakness. These memories shaped policy, diplomacy, and ambition. This is why sovereignty matters so deeply to China. Why control over technology, trade routes, and finance is treated as national survival. Why economic strength is seen as defense. The Belt and Road Initiative is not just infrastructure. It is strategy. Technological self-sufficiency is not just competition. It is protection. China's rise is not accidental. It is intentional. From forced treaties to global manufacturing dominance. From famine to financial power. From humiliation to influence. This does not mean China's story is complete or without risk. Debt, demographics, inequality, and geopolitical tension all loom ahead. History has not ended. But one thing is clear. China did not simply recover from the Opium Wars. It remembered them. And it was rebuilt with the patience of a civilization that measures time not in years, but in centuries. This is the deeper lesson of China's rise. Economic power is never just about money. It is about memory, strategy, and the refusal to be weak again. If you want more deep, cinematic stories about money, power, empires, and the forces that shape our world, subscribe to the Fortune Ledger HQ.